Hello, and welcome to World Water Week. Wetlands are vital ecosystems that provide numerous benefits to both humans and the environment. They support biodiversity, regulate water flow, and provide livelihoods for millions of people. However, wetlands around the world are under threat due to climate change, agricultural expansion, and rapid urbanization. But wetlands can also be a powerful tool for climate adaptation, mitigation, and resilience. And today we'll be digging into how, as we hear from the we'll be digging into how the international community is meeting the challenge. We'll hear from the Convention on Wetlands, bringing a global perspective on the challenge, and cases from Wetlands International on how to work towards resilience using an integrated landscape approach. To talk about this and more, I am joined by Dr. Flore Lafay de Michaud, Senior Advisor for Europe for the Secretariat of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. Very welcome.
Thank you.
And Ibrahima Cham, Executive Director of Wetlands International, Africa, Western Coast, and Gulf of Guinea. Thank you very much for being here, both of you. Flore, I'd like to start with you. Can you tell us how wetland conservation and restoration can be a key part of climate action?
Thank you, Kanika. Indeed, you mentioned threats on wetlands, and they are the ecosystems that face the highest rates of loss worldwide. But still, they are the most efficient nature-based solution, the most powerful ones. First, they stabilize the global hydrological cycle. They also are key for mitigation as they store carbons. You know, perhaps that's peatlands. They represent only 3% of the world's surface. And though they store carbons twice as much as worldwide forests, they are also key for climate adaptation. They are, for example, buffering storms and coastal ecosystems as mangroves or seagrasses. They are able to control flood damage up to 50%.
Wow.
And in Indonesia, if there had been a terrible tsunami, and mangroves where they were had a very powerful impact to save lives.
Wow, incredible. I mean, so you've given so many great examples here of the key both mitigation and adaptation opportunities that present themselves when we keep wetlands healthy and functioning well. Ibrahima, can you tell us about the integrated landscape approach? What does this practically mean on the ground?
Well, practically, Wetlands International works on integrated landscape approach using our Wetlands for Resilience model. And you have to understand that in the past, conservation organizations used to work on a site-based. And the departure here is to really embrace a larger landscape with all its connectivities. And what we do practically is really establishing an inclusive partnerships because those landscapes have multiple stakeholders. These can be farmers, these can be government institutions, these can be private companies or recreational companies. So we establish a partnership that includes all those stakeholders, and then we build a common understanding because the perspectives are different. And from that perspective of common understanding, we built a common vision. And then from the common vision, we define some collective action we implement together, and then we monitor them and evaluate them together. And that helps us actually at the end to be able to influence policy, but also decision making in order to reach scale up.
So, Ibrahima, you've talked about, this need for the wider approach. We're not talking about specific sites anymore. We're talking at a bigger catchment or basin level or even larger than that. You're talking about a number of different stakeholders being engaged and part of this collective consultation and integration. Can you share some examples of where we see the landscape approach in action, and maybe what are some of those key lessons learned from seeing it on the ground?
Yes, Konika, I can share the experience of our work in Guinea-Bissau, a country in West Africa, where we are implementing our Wetlands for Resilience project, which is supported by SIDA. What we have done in Guinea-Bissau, actually in the Jetep-Siska show, is to convene a diverse number of stakeholders, including fishermen, including community leaders like the kings, including local authorities like the coastal planning department, and many other stakeholders, including private companies. And with those, we have worked to establish this Jetep show landscape approach and define a collaborative mechanism together. And then that helps us actually to leave the project by project approach and work together towards a common goal with the shared vision I mentioned earlier. And in the Jetep show landscape actually in Guinea-Bissau, this has allowed us to reach a critical milestone, which is to introduce Jetep show application as a UNESCO biosphere reserve. And this is going to be a very strong stepping stone for scaling up restoration in that area.
So I hear from you, the need for having a common goal of working together, of also defining the opportunities of, where are we going together, that everyone has a stake in it. And that goes from fishermen all the way up to different kinds of authorities. Thank you so much for that, Flor. The need to restore wetlands isn't a new topic. I think we've been talking about this for a very, very long time, but clearly the need for action is now more than ever. What are we missing to truly upscale wetlands restoration and conservation?
Thank you. I think yes, it's a long battle, and knowledge is really not an issue here. It's more about silos, silos across sectors, because there is the misconception of water being separate from biodiversity issues, being separate from climate issues. And these silos are not overcome because there is also silos within the community, the professional communities themselves, who have different knowledge and that feel uncomfortable and not in the position to be able to integrate other objectives within their own mandates. And I think here is a very wrong approach, because we should see climate objectives being reflected in biodiversity goals and reversely. The second element is about undervaluing wetlands. We really do not give the proper value, the financial value to wetlands. So they are not reflected in finance, in budgeting. But also there is an undervaluing in terms of they are seen sometimes as interchangeable spaces, while they are in fact very much context-based, localized, and very much in direct needs of communities. And here, the landscape approach, is really a very nice way locally to engage with these issues. And perhaps the final one is not seeing wetlands as isolated places. Again, even if there are needs and local challenges, but really in linked with upper scales at the river basin, of course, but also even bigger scales with the global hydrological cycle that the Global Commission on Economics of Water puts forth in its document. And also the source to sea approach that has this notion of interconnectedness.
So I hear very much from you, of course, that this need for interconnected approaches, but also I think underscoring what Ibrahima also mentioned about this idea of common goals, breaking through silos, but working towards something together. And what really resonates with me is the undervaluation of wetlands. And I think we all know money speaks, and being able to put money behind things is what really changes things. Ibrahima, I want to get really practical now. I mean, you have decades of practical experience of spearheading this work in Africa's West Coast and Gulf of Guinea. What are the tools and approaches that you have seen that have been really effective in making the difference in getting more engagement in wetlands restoration and conservation? And what would you like to see more of?
Kanika, in terms of tools, we in Wetlands International use very much the nature-based solutions. And there is one I would like to mention, which is ecological mangrove restoration, which we use actually in the Guinea-Bissau case I just mentioned it in the framework of our Wetlands for Resilience project. Ecological mangrove restoration relies on really letting nature to do its job. It means actually that we work with hydrology, we work with the sediments to open channels together with communities so that mangroves can naturally regenerate. And we also use, while we do it, some other tools which then target the community livelihoods, because at Wetlands International, we combine those two in a unique way. And in terms of livelihoods, we work with an innovative tool we call GECOM, and that's Savings and Loan Groups for Mangrove Restoration. This is a group of community members, mainly women and youth, who come together, meet every week to save a small amount of money, and at the end of a week or a month, they can lend that money among themselves and fund some micro enterprises related to the mangrove ecosystem or not.
Wow.
And at the same time, they set aside a solidarity fund that will help to fund the mangrove restoration activities they do in their community. And one last tool I can mention, this is at a bigger level, is a conservation trust fund, which helps to bring really sustainable funding to the conservation and restoration of natural resource management.
I'm just fascinated by this idea of a savings and loans group dedicated to mangrove restoration and encouraging livelihoods that are going to continue to support that restoration and conservation of that vital ecosystem. It sounds fascinating. I now have a question to both of you. I can imagine, and you've already touched on this quite a bit, Ibrahima, I can imagine that in order for these approaches to be truly successful, you need a wide variety of actors and breaking through those silos, as you said before, Flor. Who would you like to see taking a greater interest in the issue, and who do you want to see as your partners in the future? Flor, maybe you can weigh in first.
Thank you, Kanika. I think it was mentioned by Ibrahim, the finance is really a sector that we would like to get more interest of. Ministers of finance, for example, are not so much our interlocutors so far. And also the private sector, the investors, and also development banks. I think some of them are doing a lot already, but we can go much further. Because as we've discussed earlier, if you finance wetland action, you not only finance biodiversity outcomes, water resilience, but also climate action. And so climate finance should have a greater interest in wetlands. And also biodiversity, we know that the GEF, the Global Environmental Fund, 9 replenishment, will have a stronger look at wetlands for the coming, in the coming months and years. So we are very, very glad of this. And if I may add a few more actors, I would also mention local governments, cities. We have a scheme at the Convention Wetlands, Wetland City Accreditation. This is very interesting because it recognizes the efforts of cities toward the wetlands, urban wetlands or peri-urban ones. And this really allow us to talk to new audiences, urban people that perhaps are not too much related to nature spaces, but to remind that these wetlands are really key for them, for the water, for the climate. Local, it has a cooling effect, for example, but also for mitigation. So I think these actors, we are already engaging with them, and we would like to see them even more. They are very agile and learning fast, and they have a lot of skilled capacities. So we think they could be key in the future. And finally, I would like to mention academia. Because to me, academia has a very important role to play to provide us feedback on what we're doing. I mean, some people have no time to really think they are doing, and others can have this, stepping back and have a look and then come back with feedback. And I think academia has really a core role to play to better connect with professionals in a way or another. Thank you.
Very interesting, Flora. I mean, I hear from you the financing, very important key. Climate finance in particular, as you were mentioning, cities. I thought that was also quite interesting. And academia, I like that angle in terms of that opportunity to provide feedback meaningfully and really help to move forward. Ibrahima, who do you want to be speaking to more?
Konika, there are some critical actors, the private sector, because we have some companies who impact wetlands with their supply chains. It can be, in our cases, the tourism industry with hotels. It can be oil and gas industry or the fisheries. And very often these companies are absent from the actions of restoration or conservation, while the heart of their business actually is using the wetlands. So I think we would like to talk more to them and have them contribute. Another actor, I think, and this relates to actually breaking the silos that Flora was mentioning earlier, is the development finance sector by recognizing the interconnectedness of the environment and the development and putting more resources into protecting and restoring the wetlands. Those are the two I would mention.
Brilliant. And I really want to zero in on the private sector link there, that their success really relies on the health of these wetlands. And should that health be degraded, how their supply chains or other means of progress and success will be impacted. Flora, Ibrahima, it's been a really insightful conversation. As we prepare to start wrapping up our discussion, I'm curious if you have any last words for our audience members about the role of wetlands and climate action, and and what do you hope that they take away with them today? Flora, your key messages.
I would say think wetlands because I think you are doing it's a very effective, most effective approach. You are doing good for biodiversity, water, and climate. And the second is act now, because we know that wetlands are disappearing very fast. The equivalent of India has already disappeared in the last 50 years, the surface of India, and it continues. And we have the Global Wetland Outlook 2025 just released for our COP in Zimbabwe that confirmed that. So we have to protect what we have now before spending too much money on restoration on the later stage. And there are many ways to do that, and in industries, in the conservation world, but also in the water management approach, that can do a lot for wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flora. So I'm taking with me the need to protect what we have now. We've already lost the surface area equivalent to the size of India in terms of wetlands, and that they're very effective in cross-cutting. You can address so many different areas if we're able to continue to restore and preserve these vital ecosystems. Ibrahima, what do you hope our audience member takes with them today?
Well, still in line with the action orientation, in Guinea-Bissau we have, with our Wetlands for Resilience program, built a vision, as I said, and prepared very strong propositions of investment with the support of CEDA, and I hope others will join supporting this program in a wonderful landscape in the Jetep-Sishkasho in Guinea-Bissau.
Brilliant. So we'd like to see some more support to continue to work towards these different processes and scale up the work that you've already done. I'd like to thank you both so much for being here today. It's been a truly insightful conversation, and I've learned so much about the power of wetlands when it comes to climate action. We hope our audience members also will be bringing with them and engaging more closely with you and working towards conserving and restoring more wetlands wherever they may be. Many thanks to our audience here in Stockholm, as well as those joining us online wherever they might be. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.